Hi everybody. We're on to our next session. I'm Patrick Lowry, one of the directors of Backlane West, an artist-led project space in Red Roof. You've heard from CMR, who are just up the road from us, so it's quite nice that there's kind of a couple of in the same street trying to do similar things. Backlane West, like most of these places, was set up just because me and a couple of other artists needed a place for a weekend. We've now been running since 2009, I think, or something. So we've been running quite a while from what was just going to be a weekend. This is our first event, and we didn't really anticipate it going on for any length of time, Backlane West. But other people wanted to use the space. And what we've now grown into is a space that runs a regular residency program. We try to have an artist in there every month pretty much. It's usually sort of 10 months of the year that we have artists in there. Mixture of local artists, artists from around the country, and also artists from abroad come to use the space for various reasons. It's a working space. We don't call it a gallery, although most artists end up using it to exhibit their work after they've used it as a space to test ideas. But alongside the residencies, we've started to develop other programs. We have a talks program. We're trying to build up exchanges as well between other artist groups, because what we've realised is that we can, as we've got a space and we've got a name, we also can act as an agency for artists, and that's sort of what we have taken on the role of being, is sort of artist agents, artist professional development supporters. I mean, not that we've got any particular expertise, but because we've got this space, it allows us to kind of make links, make connections, make applications for projects that as an individual artist wouldn't be so easy. So we use it in that way as a kind of a way to help artists develop their own practice. The slides are up here now, are some recent work of residencies. Davina Kirkpatrick's was in there not so long ago, testing a piece of work that she was doing as a part of a PhD as well. So she sort of used the space to test some ideas that she then wanted to take back into her PhD. Stuart Robinson, he was our last resident. Just, I don't know, he's still probably got stuff in the space. Stuart? But yeah, Stuart's space. So you get a sense of it's not a huge space. But it's just, I don't know, I think most artists seem to find it's quite a workable size. It's just a sort of two open spaces. So not too daunting, but big enough to do things that maybe they can't do in their own studio space. We've worked with the university, Falmouth University, and we're just hopefully going to get some applications in for a graduate residency. We offer every year. We offer a graduate residency, so it gives graduates the opportunity to test the application process that we've all tried and failed at quite often, applying for things. So they apply to do a residency at Backlane West, and hopefully we get some good proposals. Last year we had 2 proposals that we wanted to do, so we offered a couple of artists the opportunity to run this thing, Should We Stay or Should We Go, which was an exhibition of graduates that had left Cornwall and those that had stayed in Cornwall. It was that whole debate about, can you survive in the southwest as an artist, or do you have to move away? Naam Kim, she came over from Paris, although she's a Korean artist, wanted to do some research in this corner of the world, did some work with us, found ourselves up in the China clay pits, which I'd never been to, but she was keen to go, so it's quite interesting. And then took that work back to Paris to show it over there. We also try and get out and about and find out what's going on. And this event today sort of a seed was sown some time ago at Interplay back in Bristol, 2012, which was a very similar event to this that worked so well that Hand in Glove put together. And we wanted to be part of generating a kind of a mix-up, so we borrowed that idea for this event today. Exchanges. We do these exchanges, artist exchanges. This is an exchange we did with a group of Strix up in Birmingham. It was another artist-led project space. And we're trying to do more of that. We want to actually try and get some funding to do that so as we can give some funding to artists to go to another artist-led space and that we can then host those artists back at Back Lane West. So we kind of mix up the dialogue between regions. This is working with Pack Home. We did an exchange with Pack Home, Cast and Pack Home, which has been led to a nice continuing relationship, which has led to this event. It was Cast and us that kind of got together on this. You've seen this Inland Festival event before. This is Field Notes. Did this year before last, isn't it? And we were pleased to be part of that and drew in artists from outside the region to show work in Redruth, and that we thought was quite interesting. So we not only bring work out, but we bring work in, so as people in the local area can kind of get a taste of what's going on outside the region. So we use it as an excuse to invite some artists from Bristol primarily to show in Redruth. This was an artist that was part of that, but she's an Italian artist who'd done her MA at Falmouth. She had a residency with us, and we invited her back to make some work for the Inland Festival. She's gone back to Italy, but what's quite nice is that that's led to a link with another artist-led space in Italy, which we're hoping to do some exchanges with. So again, we're trying to kind of keep that kind of dynamic of accessing art around the world. We were asked to be a sort of agent for Cornwall, ArtQuest asked us to go to the Fringe party up in Scarborough a couple of years ago now, so it's quite an old slide. But again, it's what we try and do is we try and get out and kind of represent what's going on in Cornwall in other corners of the country. We also got involved in Artist in Conversation, was a series of talks that came out of the Centre for Contemporary Arts in the Natural World Soil Cultures residency programme. It was a residency programme that had been set up around the country with artists working with a theme of soil, and it was at various universities. It was at Kew Gardens. It was at Eden Project, and we managed to get all those artists in to do a talk at various points back in Redruth. And more recently, with probably a lot of you know, Lux have been down and had a residency in Cornwall, Porthmere Studios, and again, we were really pleased to get invited to work with them and to encourage artists in the region that were working with moving image to make contact with them and start having a dialogue with what they had to offer. And likewise, we've recently been working with OSR projects up in Somerset, who started a project last year, and they invited us to be involved with that project and host an event down here. Artists from Cornwall. This work will then go to B-Side Festival. So this work via OSR projects will actually end up in the B-Side project. That's it.
So hello, my name is Volker Müller and I will be talking about topos. As an artist, I work with what's in front of me. That may be the street, the people, the landscape, but also it may be a corporate chain store or a computer. I like to look at the moments when specific instances start to tell a wider story. I believe that big themes manifest in small places and vice versa, and that's the reason why I keep excavating on my doorstep, and that's Exeter. At a reception, I'm faster than the slide there. At a reception in Exeter a while ago, I offloaded to a stranger about the corporate takeover of Exeter City Centre, and then they identified themselves as representing the biggest commercial landlord in town. A year later, though, I came back, knocked at their door with a proposition to make and show work about the city and its people. They looked at the detail of my proposition and offered me this space. I was granted free use of the space for a year. And after I was granted that, I applied for Arts Council funding to run a year's working program with 3 national artists' residencies, regular work-in-progress showings that were tied in with interdisciplinary discussion events, public discussion events, and use as a studio and as a social space. And the project then I titled Topos. The proposition I made to the Arts Council back then was to make work, facilitate the work of others, and engender critical discourse in response to the themes that I had been exploring for a while before that, in fact. Namely, the relationships between the rural and the urban in Britain, narratives of landscape in relation to cultural identity, and the politics of ownership and access across town and country. The aim was to combine the exhibition of finished artworks with making the processes behind them accessible and responsive to a growing audience. Artistic practice gave the impulse for exchanges on themes that were deeply connected with the lives of the participants or the guests. As an artist and production-led space, Topos has done this through an offer of openness, immediacy, continuity, and relevance. And I'll now come to that in detail. So there was relevance in that all the work had a direct connection with the city, its people, and the landscapes around it. People appreciate seeing their locale as the focus of a prolonged engagement across artists, disciplines, and professions. People who were engaged in making work came back as an audience, and obviously vice versa, the same thing happens. Whilst the discussion events created a connection between artwork and wider cultural phenomena. So there weren't art-centered discussions, there were conversations about life that were instigated by the arts practice. There was continuity through an engagement with a set of interconnected themes over time. The resident artists were chosen on the basis of how profoundly we, that's me and a number of other people, felt they would engage with these themes. A visitor might notice a sketch in the corner of the studio, and half a year later they might come back and they could see that it had turned into a concrete cast on the wall. So this kind of continuity grew into an audience, a growing audience, with expectations. There was openness, in that regular access was granted through curated work-in-progress showings, most of which were tied in with discussion events. Throughout the year, the space was also accessible for informal visits, so I've cooked plenty of cups of tea and conversation. But the openness didn't just mean for the artists to share aspects of their work, it also meant that the artists were open to what people said about their work and to benefit from the curated knowledge in the space during the discussions, for example. The Topos discussions were interdisciplinary, including sound artists, farmers, meteorologists, furniture designers, architects, cultural geographers, printmakers, and foresters. This approach was chosen to avoid dominating specialisms, to avoid people falling into jargon, and to avoid people playing status, and that worked well. The artwork would provide an impulse for exchanges, like I said before, rather than be an end to itself. Specifically, one piece of work, Shroud, it's a woodcut, that's a detail of it, a woodcut on Kosa paper that layers a central perspective of Exeter's 1950s modernist design over the vortex-like grain of a 3-meter ash blank. It's quite a big piece of work, actually. The work inspired the theme for the first Topos talk, which was on utopia and the dream of permanence, where we asked questions about the kind of dreams we are subscribing to these days, since we no longer are of a modernist kind of disposition. There's a participant quote on that piece of work. "You've made me reevaluate Sidwell Street, which I have always thought was the arse end of Exeter, and now I'm looking at it slightly differently. This was someone's dream, but everything moved on since then, and yet now my home is built by Wimpy, and they're all designed to last for 20 years, and then they're going to rebuild the lot, and there's no idea of permanence or utopia in that." The immediacy of the artists, that's myself in that case, but there were others, being accessible alongside their work. There's a couple of security guards from the local precinct. And their process inside a space that was constantly in flux was key to the quality of the discussion events. If an audience can feel how they can become part of a thought process that engenders new work in turn, and if they can gain direct insights into the development of that work, their investment in that arguably deepens. At least that was our experience. Topos worked closely with local partners in joining resources and coordinating activities. When Double Elephant Print Workshop hosted a national printmaking symposium with delegates from across the UK, we opened for a keen specialist audience, contributing to a real buzz of contemporary printmaking across the city. It was a very successful evening. Some key pieces that we made throughout the year involved working with members of the public, like this one, for example. This one, Arena, is a complex choreography with members of the public staged in the public realm, captured in a single 30-minute high-definition video shot, restaging late-night photography in broad daylight with light flowing through it. It's a still image, it's nicer to see the video. But, yeah, like neoclassical heroism. Not long after that was the photographer in Manchester who took his Renaissance art picture at night. So in preparation of this particular work, the studio served as a rehearsal space, which was quite handy. You've seen it's quite a big space, so you can manage substantial groups of people there. So choreography and sequencing could be rehearsed for some hours, which enabled us to deliver a precise performance once we went out into the public realm to shoot this thing. Everything in one shot, so no mistakes allowed. This is City Beast. It took a printing press to the street to print the sort of classic 3-image comic strip sequences in which the animals of the city commented on human life. The prints were executed as lino cuts, and passers-by were invited to give the animals a voice. Essentially, they were asked to fill in the empty speech bubbles. In exchange for £2 and the caption, they could take an original print with them. And the other prints were then hung up on a washing line. Astonishing the amount of versions people deliver over the course of the day on a single 3-strip sequence. When I carved these sequences, I could maybe think of 1 or 2. We ended up with more than 40 versions per cut. So the focus of the artist residencies, this is London-based sound artist Dawn Scarf. It was less on results than on the generation of ideas and the development of concepts that were pointing to the future. All the residents generated more ideas than could be put into practice, but we did end up with 4 finished pieces of work between them, 1 near-finished concept, and 2 ideas for future work and collaborations. In particular, piece Eclipses, this one here, was a sound video installation that I made in collaboration with Dawn Scarf. The piece uses optical devices to reconfigure the spatiality of a vista, namely high magnification binoculars, and then stages a series of performance interventions within that frame. Eclipses opened up a whole new method of working, asking for continuation, and we're going to look into this in the new season, so to speak, alongside other pieces of work. Often, at the end of a residency period, at least that's my experience, it felt like something has kind of run its course, but with this particular project, Topos, it felt more like new beginnings have been made. We've established a discursive model, and we've forged partnerships. In May, Topos will work with the Museum of Contemporary Commodities, that's a grab of their website, to host a series of events as part of Arts Week Exeter. There are brochures around here as well. Arts Week Exeter, a new thing, first time this year. Have a look. Specifically, Topos will host the exhibition Art Articles by the Berlin artist Konstantin Bayer, as well as a discussion event about commodity culture, which is tied in with the Museum of Contemporary Commodities, and global landscapes as an expansion of the landscape theme that we've been working with for a year. It would be nice to see all of you there.
Hi everyone. How long is this? 6 minutes? I'm going to cheat and show a film of a show that we did 2 weeks ago, and it's got a soundtrack on it which is quite nice in a way. So I probably won't talk much, and we can show it, and then I might just say a few things. And then, so we did a show 2 weeks ago in a warehouse in Truro. Part of an ongoing project. I've been doing a series of shows a bit like this in Cornwall, where it's getting disused buildings. And I'm kind of interested, what I'm interested in talking about now, I suppose, is, you can start it now, because I don't want to go over my time, I get told off. Is talking about how a show can generate things beyond the show. That's what I'm kind of interested in. I'm interested in putting on a good show, getting together the best bunch of artists I can. But I'm kind of interested in what the show can trigger. So I kind of want to live in an interesting place. I want to be able to see good bands. I want to go to good bars. I want to have a good culture around me. And the more and more I see is everything becoming more, Penzance is in a pretty bad way. Truro is certainly not a great place to, hang out. Chelsea is, ruins. So I don't want to, and I'm just concerned about trying to create art events that can kind of trigger things beyond just the show. So I'm kind of thinking about galleries and spaces and biennales and art fairs and the whole shebang, and kind of thinking, actually I see them as quite part of the whole kind of problem of our culture. So I'm kind of interested in what a show can do, so I guess I'm interested in doing these 2 days. This was just 2 days, but by working with the owners of the building and Truro Festival, and trying to have some kind of sense that you can, we could play some on the soundtrack if you want, because I start waffling. I start ranting. So I guess we were able to invite, because we did get some funding for this. I've done similar shows where we haven't had any funding, and in the end my attitude is funding, even when you get funding, it's not even worth it, the amount of work you put into it. So sometimes I'm a bit of a believer in no funding, because it's, but every now and then you need some funding to kind of, artists won't keep doing stuff. But anyway, that said, we were able to invite artists from Germany and Denmark and Ireland and London to come and show. There's 14 artists. So it was a great opportunity, so that because of the funding, but they could come and stay with us, so that we were able to have a good chat and discussion. And it was great to see artists come into the space and respond. There was one German artist that did the mask that just came in a big suitcase of like all these different sculptures, and he kind of, I love the way he kind of came in with all these suitcases and just said, right, this is the one for there, He had like about 20 different versions of the sculpture. Anyway, so I guess what I kind of like about this building, obviously all these incredible buildings, but also this show was called Unstable Monument, so it was about, and this is a good example of the whole rave kind of culture that. I guess what I'm kind of interested in is the kind of, if we could just turn it down a bit, I guess I'm kind of interested in, the kind of, for want of a better word, the kind of bohemian kind, not bohemian's a terrible word, but this kind of what the show being a catalyst for something, or not a catalyst, but drawing in what's happening, under the skin of things. And so that's why I was able to, we were able to get a band there, and DJs, and I'm kind of interested in the legacy. Obviously, everyone talks about legacy all the time, but I'm interested in the fact that that this building hopefully will become it's important that there's certain buildings that become key areas. I mean, the last show that we did in the Newlyn Fish Factory has now become the Newlyn Film House, and before that happened, the council wouldn't allow the film house to happen, but when we did a show there, and by doing the show there, we were able to galvanise the kind of local, support for the idea of this film house, and luckily, by a set of circumstances, the show instigated the council to make a U-turn and allow that film house to happen. So that's kind of one of the things that I'm really keen on, is having some degree of control over our wider kind of environment, I suppose. I guess that's,
You said you weren't going to talk about it very much.
I wasn't going to talk very much. And so that's it. And then obviously we're just hoping to take this show. We've got a website now where we've got a kind of all the documentation of the kind of shows that we've done down here. But because we were able to invite those artists from overseas, I think we're hoping now to do this show in Berlin, and a couple of the artists now are living in Berlin. So I guess one thing I don't know what to say now. I think I thought that film was 5.5 minutes long. Anyway, so I guess that's it. I don't want to ramble. Is that all right?
Hello, I am Rachel Dobbs, and I am one half of Low Profile. This is the other half here, Hannah, who can't be here today because she's on maternity. Well, both technically on maternity, but she's just had a baby. So I'm here today less to talk about our practice, Low Profile, as visual artists, and more to talk about this recent project, Jamboree. So Jamboree is a new residential workshop format that we developed at the end of last year as a way to foster new peer networks, create useful and supportive connections and professional development opportunities. So the first version of Jamboree happened in Plymouth in association with Plymouth Arts Centre and Pack Home. We had 16 participants selected from 6 national artist associate schemes. So Pack Home is an artist associate scheme. You'll see the other people we were working with were Spike Associates from Bristol, Warp in Cardiff, Extra Special People from Birmingham, CG Associates in Manchester, and Glasgow Sculpture Studios. Here were our 16 participants who we absolutely put through the mill for 3 days. So we wanted to expand visibility for artists across artists who work in the regions and across the regions. So we want to make national connections and setting up things that are about sharing, support, conversation, problem solving, and being proactive. So in this kind of 3-day camp house, we took over Batter Street Studio, which is at the back of Plymouth Arts Centre, and set it up like a bit of a refugee camp for our 16 artists. There was one shower between us all. We cooked together, made food together, and worked together each day. So Hannah and I set up a focused kind of workshop situation where there were lots of different reflective tasks. So individual tasks, group tasks, and tasks that brought the artists from the different places into conversation with each other. We're also really keen that throughout this kind of Jamboree project that the dissemination of what happens in that room is a lot wider than just those 16 people, so that it benefits a lot more people. We did this by partnering up with AN, who were part funders on the project with Plymouth culture and Pack Home. So, why did we make it happen? We made it happen because as visual artists living in Plymouth and loving living in Plymouth, Hannah and I almost feel invisible a lot of the time. We make lots of work, we show that work around the country, and we love being in Plymouth. We advocate for it consistently, but there are big challenges. So travel is costly and time consuming. The art scene is still very young, so it's lacking a full ecology. There's lots of artists who are staying in Plymouth now, which is amazing, but there are very few established artists. Blah, 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 blah. There was other things there about no live spaces. How did we make it happen? We brought a proposal to this person, Vicky Fear, who's in the room, who is the coordinator of Pack Home. She really liked the proposal and worked with us to develop it and develop the partnerships between the 6 organisations. To do this, all you need to do if you want to do this kind of thing is just draw up a clear plan for what you want. What are the aims? What are the benefits? What is it going to cost to make it happen? What are the planned activities? Design some kind of selection process and do something else that I've missed off the end of that slide. What did we find out? We found out loads of things. So we didn't expect the weekend to turn into such a kind of problem-solving active space as it did, but that was one of the things with those 16 people it really kind of got under their skin. So we've composed a series of findings. One of the first things was that artist associate schemes around the country are great, but they need to talk to each other more, and there needs to be more connection, and I think that's something that's starting since Jamboree. Also, that artist members shape the provision of those schemes. Don't wait for people to provide the thing, ask for it, make it happen. The second was that there's a big problem around critical writing in the region and the lack of it. So we were identifying a need for a network of independent critical writers who operate nationally, so decentralising this process of writing. Also thinking about ways to increase mobility for artists. So for all of us in this room to make interesting invitation to other people. Think about what it is you've got with all its quirks and idiosyncrasies and find other people who want that stuff. Also trying to work out ways to exchange studios or spaces so that as an artist you could go somewhere else or swapsies with people. And advocacy. So we were talking about the need for salaried curators in organisations to act as stronger advocates for artists from those regions, from those areas, and almost be like a kind of promoter of artists who live local to them. So what we're doing with all of this now is we're continuing our conversation with AM, who are really interested in supporting the next iteration of Jamboree. So we think that will probably be thinking about residential workshops, also meetups that are based around visual art events or art events that are happening, things like Glasgow International. I know quite a few of the people from Jamboree have a kind of meet-up there, and also thinking about strategic consultancy, so artists being involved and having more of a voice in strategy and formation of strategy. This is how you can find us on the internet. Look at our artwork, look at Jamboree. It's lush.
Hi everyone, I'm Rupert White. I'm here to talk about Art Cornwall, which is an online journal. I was expecting to be able to control the slides myself, and apparently I'm not able to, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. I'll just keep talking, and so we'll see. It's been going since 2006, so it's actually one of the longest running kind of projects really being presented today. So a whole decade of writing and photographs of shows, interviews with various people, going back over 10 years. These are some of the people, not all of the people that contributed to it. That's, occasionally people refer to it as my blog, and I kind of, it's okay, but it's not really. It's not a blog at all. It's actually I'm like the webmaster, the kind of the editor, whatever you want to call it. But I rely on other people really to contribute to it. It started in 2006, and it was really the Salt Gallery. I don't know if you remember in Hale. I had a solo show there, and I got talking to the ladies that were running that space. And we the idea initially was that a whole group of us would set up this journal. Penny Florence, who was working in Falmouth University at the time, was sort of in on it as well, and it was going to be a joint thing. But then Penny moved up to the Slade, I think, and people like someone like Darryl Waller went up to London, and I was sort of left holding the baby. So I kind of kept it going. I got some funding, which for the first 2 or 3 years, we currently don't have funding, so it's we're sort of reliant on other means to raise money and general goodwill and my own kind of efforts. But it's still going, and I think this gives you. So this is the features page. You can see we make a point of trying to have articles about what it is to be an artist working in a rural part of the country. That's a kind of issue that's kind of important to think about and reflect on. And again, some of these Wales. For a while, we tried to sort of hook up with artists that were working in Wales because they face some of the same issues as artists working in Cornwall, I think, and feeling a little bit on the periphery. This little article about this. I don't know if everybody saw this. Gavin Turk drew a pasty, which got, and as he made this film of him drawing this pasty that was sent by Skype to the ICA. This all happened sort of 2008, 2009. It's kind of slightly bizarre thing, but it was quite a nice little article. It's one of James Hankey's early works. He's hiding behind the Plymouth. This is going back to, I think this is the exhibition page. So this is going back to about 2007 now. So Blair would have given me pictures of all the transition shows at the Newlyn, which again go back probably, 20 years maybe. So this is all the most up-to-date exhibitions. So we've got Stuart's show that's just finished, I think. David Blandy just finished. Unstable Monuments was the show Jesse was just talking about. It's difficult to cover everything, and but if you're an artist and you think you've got some images or a show that you'd like sort of archived, shown alongside these other shows, then get in touch. The idea is that over time you get this archive of that shows some of the activity, not all of it, but it kind of is a sort of fair reflection of some of the things that have happened in Cornwall, particularly in the last 10 years. I should say it's not just Cornwall, because obviously the reason it's called Art Cornwall is because it's based in Cornwall. It doesn't mean that we only write about Cornwall or only talk about Cornwall, because actually we've had people that have gone to the Venice Biennale and reported back on that, or so it's a very fluid kind of thing. This is one of my favourite shows. I've got some nice pictures of that. This is the Tate were always been quite supportive, and so we've always been able to get people to go along to their press launches. Sometimes I've gone to press launches at the Tates and Ives, and it's been me and maybe one other person. It's kind of a reminder that even Tates and Ives have trouble getting journalists down to review their shows. But it's and that's one of the problems, isn't it, with living somewhere quite remote. So this is the exhibitions page, and we're just flicking through various exhibitions that have happened here over the years. Again, going back to about 2008, this is a show that Veronica Vickery did on a farm on the cliffs near Zeno, a place called Bezegren. There's amazing views of the Atlantic Ocean. It's a really amazing venue. This is the interviews page. This is my favourite part of the website. It gives, you see, I do lots of these interviews, and I just love talking to people that I'm interested in. I'll phone them up and I'll ask them questions. It's a great, it's a privilege to be able to do that. And if any of you fancy doing that, get in touch with me. If you've got somebody, an artist you admire, or some writer or somebody you'd like a reason to interview them, get in touch with me. I'm sure we can make something happen. David Tremlett's an interesting one, because he's obviously a conceptual artist who's in the current Take Britain show. And he's a sort of Cornish lad, and what was interesting talking to him is how he became involved with the beatnik movement and the CND marches and so on in the late 60s, before he went off to the Royal College to become a conceptual artist. So, and understanding, so he knew people like Colin Wilson, the writer, who was who lived in Cornwall at the time. And so there's interesting sort of to tease out some of those cultural connections and some of those stories. This is Lucy Lippard. That's somebody I interviewed for the site. So she, obviously famous art critic, and she lived in Dartmoor for a while. And so we talked about that, and we talked about her trips to the southwest. I think she lived there a couple of years during at the peak of her sort of career as well. So she's very interested in the relationship between landscape and prehistoric monuments and earth art and all that sort of stuff. So that was a nice conversation to have. Adam Sutherland, again, quite important in terms of art projects in rural areas. Adam Sutherland's was important, I think, to get his views, and that's quite a long interview that he gave me a few years ago. That's the David Tremlett interview that I was mentioning. So that's him as a teenager in Portmelon, I think it is, which is a nice little village near Mevagissey. That's another part of the David Tremlett interview. It's a nice little story. He had two best men at his wedding, and Gilbert and George, they did it together. It's interesting to hear people's journeys, and I think I'd say that actually the interviews that I put on Art Cornwall are often a lot more detailed and in depth than you might be used to seeing in magazines and so on. There's no restriction on the word count. So there's a lot of detail here that David Tremlett's never been published anywhere else about David Tremlett. Moving on to this is the profile section. This is really for the search engines. This is just a page on sort of famous artists associated with Cornwall mainly. I think we've got a couple of Devon artists as well. It's partly to help bring people to the site, and it works. A lot of people look for these kind of artists. Although this is one of my personal, people haven't heard of this guy, but he's an interesting character that was around in the 70s, who I've just written a book about him actually. This might be the last slide, it's gone really quickly. But this is James Hankey features again. This is a standalone sort of. These are standalone kind of artworks. There's no text or anything. Quite often, this is just these are the photographs that James took last year as part of the Wanderers show. This is a thing that Dick Jewell, who was in Unstable Monuments, sent me. It's just a photo. It's a massive big photograph. This is another contributor to Unstable Monuments. It's a video. If any of you've got work that you think might work on the internet. That maybe better suited to the internet, maybe in a conventional gallery space, send it my way. There's a good chance. There's no reason. Oh, there's some more. Carter and Zeal, I think you'll know as performance artists based down in St Just. They didn't have a website for ages, so they used to just send me everything that they had to put on the on Art Cornwall. That is the last slide. These are the really old articles. So, please get in touch if you think you have got anything that might be of interest to the site, anything at all. And I'd say again that interviewing people is I can't recommend it highly enough. If you fancy interviewing somebody, again, get in touch. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Lucy. I'm Lucy Stein. This is Simon Bayliss. Have we started now? Yeah. This is where we met, which is Ballyvaughan in the Burren in County Clare in Ireland. Simon, how did you feel when you first set eyes on me?
I had deja vu. We collaborate as artists together, I should just point that out. We also have our own practices. We met in this landscape, which is a limestone cast landscape, amazing array of plants.
Can you please tell us a bit about the Alpine Gullies?
Oh, well, I can't because it's moved on. We lived in this tiny little village in Ballyvaughan, and just after Lucy left,
Leaving a trail of destruction behind me.
There was a murder, and there was only about 200 people in the village, and the body went missing for a week, and there was this sort of black cloud over the village, and then it washed up on the beach that I used to work at as a surf instructor. But just to illustrate the point that this village was very small, there were 6 pubs, and in those pubs we talked a lot about painting and wanting to curate an exhibition.
We had 5 pints of Guinness a day, and during those pints we talked constantly about the southwest of England, which the Burren reminded us of, and painting. And yeah, we decided at this point we proposed to cast in Plymouth to put on an exhibition which is named after a ship that had banged into the
into the lighthouse at Land's End. SS Blue Jacket.
SS BJ.
And this is our hero, Robert Lenkovich. We both find this painting turns
An extremely erotic painting called what's it called?
Fantasizing, playing Mary like a cello.
Yeah. This painting really turns me on.
Yeah.
This picture really turns me on. In 2013, my best friends and I, Shana Martin, who's a Californian video artist, and I decided to make a film called Polventon, set near Trevose Head, near Padstow. And around this time, Simon had contracted crabs. Somebody, was it Tate Britain or Tate St Ives?
It was networking.
Networking event in Simon's pants. We went on a field trip to a place called Manises outside Valencia in Spain because I was making ceramics for a show. And since then Simon has been working for me, making ceramic tiles because I can't actually paint in a straight line.
I do the industrial side of it, which is making these triangular shaped ones and then the glazing. So Lucy's turned into a small tile industry, which I'm part of, which is quite exciting.
This is a show that we curated in 2014 at Gamble Feast in London called The White Hotel. Tell the story.
After the opening of SS Blue Jacket, we were both really hungover, and I found this book, The White Hotel, and it spawned another conversation about painting erotica and that sort of thing.
Which led to us creating this show. This is Alan Davey in the background and Manuela Gonadal in the foreground.
Shortly after Alan Davey died, actually.
Yeah.
So.
I dreamt of falling trees in a wild storm. I was between them as a desolate shore came to meet me, and I ran, scared stiff. There was a trap door, but I could not lift it. I had started an affair with your son on a train somewhere in a dark tunnel. His hand was underneath my dress, between my thighs. I could not breathe. He took me to a white lakeside hotel somewhere high up. The lake was emerald. I could not stop myself. I was in flames. From the first spreading of my thighs.
This is another collaboration. So this is Squirming the Worm on NTS Radio. It's bi-weekly, so every other Wednesday. And it's hosted by Coco de Mol, which is Lucy's alter ego, and I produce it as Swim on Babyliss, which is my...
I make it in bed, reading feminist literature, Dana's literature. It's all about getting into a state of... it's describing a state of extremely sexual depression. This is Jonathan. He was our third member when we lived together in St Ives last year. He used to come in and shit on our carpet quite often.
He put EastEnders on. At 1 o'clock in the morning.
And he was really into art.
As you can see. This is the Salt House Gallery in St Ives.
So I was doing the Tate residency last year, and Oh, this is my family and the ferrets. So for me, the most sacred site in St Ives is the pub, the ferrets, which basically turns into a living, breathing organism. Come about sort of 10 o'clock on a Saturday night. It's one of these amazing places where the whole crowd gets together. I'm sure most of you know it. I love the ferrets. This is Jonathan again. This is a performance event that finished my residency with Tate called The Wise Wound. These are the ceramics that you've seen already. Simon does the straight lines, I do the other ones. These cabbage leaves were based on the foundation myth of St Aya, who founded St Ives, came over from Ireland on a cabbage leaf, just like Simon and I.
We also go to other sacred sites in Cornwall other than the Three Ferrets, and this is Boscawen, and we've performed some ritualistic magic, and both of our wishes came true, luckily. And on the way home, I had to slow down for a black cat, which is quite ominous, but...
After my residency finished, I had to spend a month in bed because I got labyrinthitis, which I don't know if you know, but I didn't even know that it existed. But I came down the stairs one day. I was in bed spinning, and I got up, retching. My father was coming down the stairs, and he said, "It looks like you've got a bad case of labyrinthitis," which to me just seemed completely bizarre. I imagined myself living inside the balls that David Bowie is juggling in Labyrinth.
And we made a radio show about it, if you want to listen to it. It's on NTS.
But I had to wear blue specs, but I was a span for about a month. This is one of my best friends, Ilka Cinderella, very good friend of mine, doing his adopted father here last year. This is one of my best friends, JT, John Thompson, landscape architect, great creative mentor to me, and a good friend to Simon too, who unfortunately died this year, so I'm very, very deeply mourning his loss.
And we took him to the Three Ferrets.
He loved it.
This is a poster I designed for an artist. It was a talk with Tate St Ives about women artist networks in Cornwall, and I was asked to make a poster, and I made one with this sort of Sir Navis giant type figure, and was quite embarrassed at the time of making it, but it spawned, so I then made a tea towel out of the design for a residency I did at Hestercombe, a show at Hestercombe, which is now turning into planning a small tea towel business.
Cornwall is our most phallic county, as you all know. This is Simon hugging another phallus at Manors Hall. This is a project that we did together this winter, which we showed in Hastings, somewhere else on the axis of occultism. We photographed ourselves naked at the Manors Hall, and then with me.
Shall I read the poem? On the humped moor's spine, consumptive miners turned aside from their plod home to crouch and pass through the Menonthol, the ring of granite. I am the Logan stone, a cloud can alter, inert mass trembling on a compass point. I am the Menonthol, the wind's vagina. I am the circle of stones grouped around grass.
So this is the work installed in the show Uncommon Chemistry in Hastings.
There's paper mache and it's printouts of ourselves pasted to it, basically. It's a kind of life-size replica of the Menonthol.
I got caught by a bunch of teenage boys. Blushing teenage boys.
And the day after I did my naked one, and there was a story in the Daily Mail about two guys who had been arrested at Machu Picchu for pausing themselves for what? For picturing themselves naked.
Machu Picchu.
Machu Picchu. Machu Picchu.
That was our last Petra Future. It's now dinner time, but we are running quite late, so if you're getting on a 7 o'clock train, please push to the front of the queue, and if not, please loiter and eat something delicious.